Hello there, everybody. It is Wednesday, June 14th, 2023, Flag Day, everybody. Hello, and welcome to another episode of All Knicked Up. I am one of your hosts, as you know, Eric Holzman. I hope everyone is good out there, doing well, enjoying some of the early summer weather. So I know some of you are getting a little rainy here today, but, you know, what are we going to do? It's getting hot, though, and humid, which is good for some and sucks for others. I know that. But of course, it's been a couple weeks. We weren't on last week, so we have a full show. A lot's happened in the NBA. As you know, we have a new champion, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, let me bring in my co-host, Ty. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, brother?
I'm good. So yeah, it's been a couple weeks. We didn't do a show last week.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I got to go see Transformers: Rise of the Beasts last week.
And I saw that as well, which was very good.
Yeah, so that was why we had no show last week, because I was previously occupied. But a lot's happened since then, so we'll get into that in a minute. But we actually have a guest. So he's been a fan of the show. He's commented in the group many times, but he's been dying to come on. So let's bring Joe on. Hello there.
Hello, guys.
Hello. So it's good to see you, man. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming on.
It's my pleasure to be here.
We've been talking about doing this for a little while, so I'm glad we finally got the opportunity to do it. And like, we want to do this with other, bunch of people. We'd like to have a revolving door of guest hosts pop in every once in a while. So I'm glad we finally got to get you to come on. So what I normally do, Ty and I have been here doing this now for a while, a little over a year, which is unbelievable. But yeah, I know it's crazy when you think about it. But so just give us the history of your Knick fandom. That's how I try and bring the Knick fans in. So give us the history of your Knick fandom.
Okay, so growing up, I was more into like comics books and science fiction and that kind of thing. But I grew a lot. Mm-hmm. And by the time I was 14, I was about 6'4". And then they kind of recruit you like Hitler Youth into basketball, like, you come with me, and they So the first time I played organized basketball was probably about sophomore, when I first picked up basketball. And then I started following the game and loving the game. And I was blessed to be born in a generation where we had an incredible team. And, Patrick Ewing was my hero. Loved Patrick Ewing. Mm-hmm. And my experience with basketball really kind of grew with those 90s Knicks teams. And it just went from there. I'm a sports fan all around, but I don't have an attachment to any team like I do with the Knicks.
It's amazing that we all have an attachment to that team and they never won a title. Like, we all have this.
None of my teams have won a title.
I know. Yes, Joe is a Atlanta Falcons fan, and that Super Bowl still, man, I feel for you so much. As a guy who's been beaten by Tom Brady too many times in my life as a Jets fan, I totally get it. But man, on that stage,
no one in my family talked to me for like 2 weeks. They just knew better, man.
Smart people.
So bad. All right, so.
That's so funny.
Thanks again for coming on. We will definitely, we'll get into it. Oh, look, Craig is already commenting. Yes, Craig. Good to see you.
Yes, it's that easy.
No one.
Dude, you left us. I don't want to hear it. You walked out on us. No, I'll play it.
Cold world. That's what.
Yes. But again, Joe, thanks for coming on. We'll get into it right away, because we do have a new NBA champion. So we'll start with the league at large. Of course, congratulations to the Denver Nuggets. Yes. They are the 2023 NBA champions. Won in 5 games. Ty, I think you said 5. I said 6, but I think you said 5. So I gotta tip my cap to you on that one.
Yeah, I didn't see Butler being a superhero like most people do. And Jokic is a superhero right now.
Yes, I think it stops. Jamal Murray was fantastic. Don't get me wrong. They would not have gotten there, wouldn't have won without him. But I think it stops and begins and ends with Djokovic not Djokovic. See, I'm getting my name with Jokic. Djokovic won another French Open, and now he's the best tennis player ever. That's what I got. So it's been a big week for Serbia. A big last few days.
Serbia, that's for sure.
Yeah, so good for that. But yeah, Jokic won league MVP. Oh, I'm sorry, not one. I'm all over the place today. He won Finals MVP. He averaged 30 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, and won about a steal and a half per game. He shot 58% from the field, 42 from 3, which when you think about his size and how he looks, that's a crazy number. And 84% from the line. So Joe, who did you think Miami had a shot in this series?
I thought it was going to be a longer series than it was. I mean, I thought, to tell you the truth, they were going out in the first round. Every round I thought Miami was going out, and they had that smell of destiny. I didn't think they were going to win. I thought Denver was too good, but I thought it was going to be a 6-7 game series.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. It really was surprising to me that they lost both games in Miami. I thought they would get one there. That's why I picked 6. I thought they'd get one of the first 2, game 3 or 4 in Miami. And they had a shot. Which one? I believe they had a shot. Well, both games were kind of close, but I think they had a better shot in game 3, if I remember correctly.
I think it was 3, yeah.
But couldn't get it done. And man, it's weird. Djokovic is one of those. I keep saying Djokovic. Jokic is one of those players who you look up and he has like this amazing stat line. You don't think he's so unassuming because of the way he plays. You don't think he's playing that well. Then you look up and you see he's got almost a triple double in the first half. He's a fantastic player. And man, look, Joel Embiid is fantastic. He was deserving of the MVP, but I don't know how.
Go on.
I don't know how you couldn't. I don't know how you just couldn't give it to him again, because he didn't get any worse, right? So if Jokic was as good as he was the last 2 seasons,
that was the greatest bias. That's the old narrative that you're getting tired of hearing Jokic is winning or the MVPs. Did it to Jordan during his heyday. Usually it's boredom from the writers that actually vote in regarding the MVP. I didn't buy Embiid being the MVP. It made no sense when you look at how Denver dominated in the West, and that guy so happened to put up great numbers while doing it. Let's call a spade a spade. This was just a biased vote, in my opinion, because you have this guy who, I don't want to go deep on another subject about what it is, but he is not from here. And a lot of these writers want to speak about American basketball, and then it's a little Crayola. I'm going to put it that way. I'm trying to be as clean as I can be with regards to having a player of his ilk, now being considered one of the best or maybe the best player in the league. You saw it with Luka Doncic also during the Clippers series, where the chirping went on about what position he was in the Crayola box, and how is he winning, and like it was some trick magic that this guy just might be damn good. Same thing with Jokic. I've been saying, Eric will vouch for this offline. I often talk about the best players right now in the NBA are European players. And I know American players don't want to hear this. Maybe the barbershops don't want to hear this, and it's all good. But the top-notch dudes are not from the U.S. right now, and that's probably sticking in the craw of a lot of the pundits who want to write these narratives. Especially the LeBroninator and people want to go on Steph and all that, et cetera, which is fine and great. But Jokic has been 2-time MVP. Now he has a chip. He has a chip. Giannis has a chip. Has multiple Defensive Player of the Years and MVPs. And Embiid now gets his, which I still think is bogus, but he gets his. Doncic is a killer right now. So when you look at the landscape of NBA basketball, and it's not a lot of Americans. The Americans have failed. I mean, Butler being the last hurrah of probably that dog, getting there, the two-way player, stud of the U.S. players, probably their toughest next to Kawhi. If you want to start, puppeting what's the best kind of player that the U.S. brings, they usually can bring toughness on both ends of the floor.
Yeah.
And he got stuffed like a Thanksgiving turkey. Let's just put it where it is. That dude had his ass handed to him, and all of Miami did. All the American players got turned out. So, and it was another via Canadian. It's Canadian bacon on Denver as well. So we're still talking about some of the top 8 to 12 talents in the NBA, and they're not from the U.S. That's just what it is right now. And the league needs to get woken up, and they did. That this unassuming, fluffy doughboy, whatever you want to call him, they said Luka's fat too, but he was killing two of the best defenders I've ever seen in this modern day, in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. So
yeah,
we now moving forward where this bad man out in Denver who wants to go hang out with his horses and not go to parades is that dude right now.
Do you think there's something to how they teach the game? Like, I know in Europe, positions 1 through 5, point guard through centers, are doing passing drills. They're learning how to dribble. They're developing skills differently. Whereas I think in the American game, I think if coaches find a shiny spot on you, they will accentuate that and make that deadly, whether it is your athleticism or shooting or in some cases defense. But I think it's a different approach to how they handle training players.
Yeah, in Europe, they also start them in camps when they're very, very young. So a lot of these kids have been playing basketball since they're like 6, 7 years old, and just during the summers when they're not in school, or even when they are in school, after school they go to the camp and they play ball, and then they go home. And in the summers they do the same thing. They just play basketball all day, every day, and these are all sponsored by the club teams. So a lot of the club teams in the ACB, it's similar to what they do in soccer around the world. They do it with basketball as well. And that's why most European players are really good fundamentally, because it's just been drilled in them since they were young. So yeah, I do, Joe, to answer your question, I do think that's definitely a big, big part of it. Here, let's be honest, we all grew up in, I want to be like Mike, right? That was the generation we grew up in. So everybody, that's why you have big men. You started having big men like Kevin Garnett and guys who weren't playing the traditional post up big man game. They wanted to run on the perimeter and shoot jump shots and handle the ball a little more. That was that generation. And now we're seeing with the 3 points with Steph Curry, right? Like,
everybody wants to be Steph.
Everyone wants to be Steph Curry. So they're taking these long 3-point shots. And I mean, Trae Young's a perfect example. I mean, that's how he plays. So you have guys who've been watching these great players, guys who have to change the game in some aspect into what it has become. And that's what you're seeing now as the game evolves. So it's an interesting study. I mean, this would be something that you could get a bunch of basketball minds together to do a nice little study on and figure it out. And it would be cool if we could somehow merge everything together and get everyone playing, with the fundamentals and the athleticism, because you can increase your athleticism. Yes, some of it is God-given, but there are definitely ways to do that. So yeah, I think there's a lot. You said a lot there. I think there's a lot to be said for that though. How the world plays the game.
I'd like to add on to that. When you look at the American epitome for over the last 20 years, it's been LeBron James. And when you look at his game is, and along with, okay, let me start with LeBron, and I'm going to end with Giannis in the same breath. When you think about players that are the best players in the game, LeBron has been the best player supposedly in the last 20 years. He's got more flaws in his game than I've seen of anybody who was considered a superstar. Next to Giannis, who has worse holes than LeBron. LeBron has no fundamental skills other than passing. That's his greatest attribute, is passing. The second greatest attribute is that he's a supreme athlete. He probably would have been a great athlete playing any sport that he desired. So we move forward to looking at LeBron's fundamentals. This dude cannot take somebody off the dribble. When they're 6'3", he can't take him off the bounce. He has no post game. When you go into the fundamentals of the game, a guy like Kevin Durant is like an old school throwback when you look at him, because he has the fundamental bag. His bag, his footwork, everything. He's a complete assassin all over the floor. So when you look at a guy like Durant, that's what probably the 80s and 90s represent, with having that skill level where you can go anywhere on the floor and not rely on a hero three-point shot, because you can do everything, a little bit of everything on the floor as a scorer. He's a straight bucket. Michael was a bucket. But you look at LeBron and all these guys are praised that, they look up to him. The footwork is terrible. He has terrible footwork. He has terrible off the bounce moves. He does not have a great handle. Everything with him is speed, power, and passing when you look at that. And what has happened being that we're in a league where you cannot touch a guy. You cannot do a form, you can't extend the arm anymore. You sneeze on him and he faints like he's on All My Children, doing every soap opera that you can find, because he fakes a death every time you blow on him. And literally the referees are culpable because they follow into that. That guy is the epitome of AAU basketball when you think about it. He's one of those guys that's been cultured up, relying on their athleticism, not being told that they need to work on the other fundamentals of the game or you don't play. See, that's where it comes in. You get one great player or a kid that since he was 5 or 6 is the echelon of the whole entire team, and nobody wants to tell him he sucks at doing certain things. So he goes throughout life the whole time. I mean, we see it even with RJ Barrett, who I love, but RJ, when you look at, no one worked on a shot. No one thought that he needed a shot. Ben Simmons, nobody thought he needed a shot. The key thing about basketball is shooting. That's one of the true attributes of the game, and you don't see that being drilled in. Like, learn to pass, learn to post, see the game, learn the fundamentals of the game, the angles of the game. There's no intelligence behind the basketball anymore. So the European guys, probably because they're not as athletic, are taught the game and how the game is played better, as opposed to teaching guys that because you're faster, you can blow by these guys and don't worry about the rest of your game.
And speaking about Jokic's greatest asset, how many guys in America are developing a post game? Like Michael, one of his greatest assets as a guard was his post-up game.
Yeah.
Jokic will destroy you in the post. And even with the rules and everything like that, the less physicality in the league, everything like that, almost would incentivize you to develop a post game because it's harder to defend. But again, it's not flashy. It slows the game down. It's not the fast break. It's not the big three from, the hash. Post-up game is something that every player should be developing. It's your go-to move. It's when you need 2 points. It's your money shot. And it's just disappeared from the game.
Yeah.
Well, that's how Brunson plays.
Yeah, I was going to say Brunson is the guy that utilizes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
and when he's kind of going, he's unstoppable almost.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because that's the other thing, though, right? Because these guys aren't used to defending it either. So you have guys now who they're taking advantage of. Well, they don't know what to do. It really is an amazing thing to watch how, everyone says things are cyclical, and maybe now because Jokic is kind of bringing back that kind of a game, we'll start to see a turn towards more fundamental basketball. But he is fantastic. I mentioned Jamal Murray. What a story, right? He's been through so many injuries the past 2 years. He was playing great in the bubble, got hurt. They might even have won that year if he didn't get hurt, because they were playing fantastic basketball. And then he gets hurt again last year. So it was a crazy, crazy story. But yeah, I mean, it's weird. Jokic was kind of just like, we won. Okay. Yeah. Next thing. And Murray was crying, and their two stars couldn't have been more different. But it was nice to see Murray get, win and have his moment, because I've always liked him. I've always thought he's a fantastic player.
You're always a fan of his.
Yeah, so I've always liked his game, and it was just good to see, because anyone who's had injuries before, it doesn't matter what level of sports you played, and no matter how hard you rehab, you lose something. It could be your confidence, it could be a little bit of your quickness. So you're always trying to, and it's in your back of your mind. I don't care what anyone says. Once you hurt yourself, you've been hurt before, and it does stick there. Mm-hmm. So, it's always there. So for that part of it is usually the hardest part when you're coming back. and to just see, you could tell like he was probably thinking about all of that.
Yeah.
When he was doing the interview and when the game ended and when you saw him on the ground crying and stuff, it was just an awesome moment.
Absolutely.
For him as well. Michael Porter Jr., another guy who's we know has had back injuries. You know, he's everyone. That was one of the reasons why I remember we were talking, Ty. We didn't want the Knicks to pick him because of his back.
Because of his back.
Yeah, and you know, he had trouble with his shot in this series, but he was doing all the other things, right? Like he was rebounding the ball, he had length, played good defense. Man, but you see the talent sometimes. Like that one move he had when he was coming down full speed, crossed the guy. I was like, this guy is ridiculous. Doing all these guard like
Kevin Knox did that for the Knicks, isn't he?
I knew that was coming up. I knew we couldn't get through a Porter Jr. talk without bringing up Knox. But those guys, man, I mean, they're basically I don't want to say they're big three, but they're their three most talented players.
Absolutely.
And you know, it was nice to see him win. KCP is just a fun guy. I like him. He's just a fun personality. And then Jeff Green, of course, played 14 teams or whatever the hell how many teams he's been on. Some crazy amount.
Hard surgery, all that stuff.
All of them was easy to root for. They were easy to root for, right? I think we could all admit they were easy team to root for, at least for me.
Yeah, they all of them had some sort of storyline when you think about it. Of, you know, how can you dislike those guys unless you are the biggest Miami Heat homer and you're walking around pissed off, which there's no Heat fans. I always tell
they don't have fans.
That doesn't exist. That's just a reason to come out and for the paparazzi to follow you in all white. Go to an all white party like Craig Carlson there, who loves doing that. That's this thing. I'm gonna get him all white outfit. But yeah, you know, it was, you know, Denver reminds me, and I mentioned this, and I might have said it, and they got a little miswired. They remind me of Detroit, and not because of how their style of play or Detroit not having the best player on the planet right now. It was a cleansing of the NBA where you saw at that time it was the LA Lakers, the super group with Peyton, Malone, Shaq, and Kobe. And meanwhile, you found 5 guys willing to work hard together that overthrew that super team aspect and played great fundamental basketball. And that's the same. Detroit played that same fundamental style that last year that they won. It was a team concept, great cuts, you know, just mindful, smart, high IQ basketball. And you saw Denver do the same thing. They annihilated the league. I don't want to hear about the seeding. Oh, it was an 8 seed. They beat Miami. Wasn't a typical 8 seed. The Lakers in the play-in, that wasn't a typical team. Durant and Booker are still Durant, Booker. You know, let's just put it where it is. They were like a hot knife through butter, basically, how they took the league by storm. And I mean, I guess we could say, oh, well, Boston, they didn't play Boston. Might have been a different story than Miami, but Miami beat Boston. So let's just leave it where it is. You know, the best team came out of the East and the best team came out of the West. And right now, Denver is looking very good. It's going to be a minute unless they get injured. They're going to run the table next year. I don't see a team right now that I can think of. If Denver's healthy again, I don't see a team stopping them.
I'm still shocked I was in Boston out of the East. That whole thing didn't feel right.
I didn't buy them. Eric would probably tell you. I said I was a little skeptical because I don't know what that team is. They're very talented with Tatum, Brown. I mean, it depends. They go my turn, your turn, basically. Sometimes Tatum doesn't show up. There's times that Brown shows up just to turn the ball over 8 times. You know, and Marcus Smart, it's not always that smart. I can't buy him at the point. You know, they would have probably been better off going with Brogdon initially, period, point blank. You know, not trying to bring him so much off the bench because you got to watch the egos and all that stuff. But we had their number too. We've been having Boston's number for the last couple of years. Eric will tell you, I'm a little ticked off. I can't even think about it. It just bothers me.
We ate their lunch this year.
Yeah, Joe, did you think, because we talked about this a few times, with the way things unfolded, if Julius Randle gave the Knicks anything, do you think they would have made the finals? Because we think that they would have.
I think Again, I saw them beating Miami. I thought they were a better team than Miami. I really did. I thought that they matched up well with Miami. I mean, things did not unfold the way I expected them to. I didn't think that their 3-point shot was going to hold up the way it did. That was a surprise to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I like this beating Boston. I just felt like we really matched up with Boston. I even posted some stuff, I think, on this page about, Boston fans worrying about the Knicks because we just seem to handle them well. Boston's a very good team. I think they have a very, very complete roster. I don't know whether there's some internal garbage or whatever's going on with that team. Maybe they're less than the sum of their parts maybe right now. But I think we would have beat Boston.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, and we both kind of agreed. Even the other guys in the group, they agreed that, yeah, we think had they gotten past Miami, they probably would have been in the finals. And I think they would have gotten beaten just like Miami did. I don't think the Knicks would have beaten Denver, but it would have been nice to see the team at least play in the finals again. It's been a while, and it would have been kind of, just because it would have been unexpected, just like '99 was unexpected. It would have been
'99.
Yeah, it would have been a very unexpected trip to the finals, but it wasn't. And now, of course, we are in the off season. And when the off season comes for the Knicks, they are always mentioned in every possible player. They are getting every player that's available. It never fails. They will get whoever. But two names have sprung to the top of the list.
Yeah.
Two names have sprung to
We're
the top.
getting LeBron, Craig.
in all white Knicks jersey.
Yes. All right. So the first one, Alan Hahn yesterday brought him up first, and then we got the news a little bit later, or today, I think, that Washington was working with Adrian Wojnarowski, said that Washington was going to work with him, which I said, what does that mean? He has a no trade clause. They have no choice but to work with him if they want to trade him, because he could just say no. So whatever. But so I look at that now. Let me just say this. I look at him as a player, and all things being equal, yes, he's exactly what they don't have, right? Excellent shooter, can score, does a little bit of everything else. Not a great defensive player, but no one on our team really is. So it doesn't really matter there. We have a great defensive coach who really doesn't have a great defensive player on his team. Maybe Josh Hart, you want to say, is the best guy? I don't know. We can split hairs in that, but Beal the player, yes. He had injury problems, of course, but what the Knicks need, I think he'd be perfect. But man, he has one of those supermax contracts, and unless it's to get rid of the guys we always talk about getting rid of, I cannot see that being a good move for this team. He's 29 years old. Again, I can't see that. What did it say?
50 mil per.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is a crazy number to think about for a guy who's not. I mean, he's an all-star level player, yes. He wouldn't have gotten his max contract if he wasn't an all-star and all NBA player. So he's that level. But so is Julius Randle, right? Like, I can just say that because he is.
He's only been an all-star 3 times.
So I know most of that's for injuries. That's the other thing with him. He's always got some little thing going on. But again, player, yes, I love Bradley Beal. I've always been a fan. He could score, excellent shooter. Oh man, that deal! I can't wrap my head around making a trade for someone who has that kind of a contract. So, Joe, what do you think? Bradley Beal, would you do it? If you would, do you have a trade in mind that you'd like to share?
I read some of the articles he was sending over, and they seem to heavily indicate the price is going to drop because of that contract. That's got to kind of be the last move if you're going to push towards some kind of a championship run, and then there's got to be some kind of an out with it. I'll explain this. It's the same thing with Damian Lillard and any other $50 million per player. If you had asked me all through my tenure as a Knicks fan, I would have said Dolan's going to pay the tax. Dolan's going to pay the tax. One thing that he's going to do, he's going to pay. with the new rules and everything that's going on with that, plus some of his business ventures aren't working out so well. We got that orb in Vegas, and it's behind schedule, and it's and then he's doing one in London, and he has shareholders to deal with for MSG as an entity, which a lot of owners don't have to do necessarily. So does he take on that contract? Does he balk at that, considering what the tax implications would be for it? So that's a great unknown. I think you look at players like Brad Beal and Damian Lillard. Let's just put him in there too. You make that move if it's going to get you a chip. That's not a move you make on the path to a chip, in my opinion. That's just my take. But how much would it take? 3 firsts and parts, I think.
That's a steep price too. Like I can't.
Yeah, that's probably what it's going to take.
Yeah.
Miami's going to. There are going to be teams that want Bradley Beal.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, Miami has. I can think of a trade package right now that would probably get it done for Miami if you include like Tyler Hero and guys like that, younger players that if Washington is doing this, obviously they're resetting, they're rebuilding. So those guys like that, and they do actually have draft capital as well. So yeah, I mean, it does seem like that's the place where he'll end up going, which I freaking would hate because they would just be so good. But if he's healthy, again, that's always a caveat with him. But yeah, it does seem from everything I've been reading that they're going to that's where he wants to go most likely, and obviously Pat Riley usually gets what he wants. So
that could screw them in the long run, though. They got 4 more years of that contract.
I know. That's the thing.
More years.
That's the thing. So, all right. So that's Beal. Let's talk about the other guy that's on the screen right now. So, all right. I've been one of his harshest critics since he's been at Duke. I have said, yes, freak of nature, athletic freak, all that stuff. I've always said, though, he was in shape then, but I've always said he still plays at too high a weight, right? He has to be lighter or else something's going to happen. Everyone thought it was funny when he basically exploded out of his sneaker in college, and everyone kind of thought that was a funny thing. And I'm like, pay attention to this, guys, because there's been a lot of big dudes in sports, and I've never seen someone tear through his sneaker in a game. I've never seen that before. All right, so we know how great he was in college, even though they didn't win. They didn't make the championship game. I remember they lost in the Final Four, I think, or maybe the Elite Eight. I don't remember. But yeah, they bowed out early. And then we had the draft lottery. And when the Pelicans won the draft lottery, you saw it on his face like, crap. Like, I have to go to New Orleans. Now, again, young kid. He probably didn't know. New Orleans is kind of a fun city, though. I've been there. It's a fun place, no doubt. Had a real good time there. There's a lot to do. I'll keep it clean. I'm not going to go too deep into it. But apparently he doesn't like the clean, so. Oh, no. Right? Dirty.
Yeah, he likes the dirt. But so we've seen this whole thing evolve. And the thing with him is this. It's either he's doesn't want to be there, so he's acting out and gaining weight and not paying attention and purposely trying not to play to get them to trade him, but why would you sign that extension? But whatever. They either that or he really just is lazy and he doesn't really want to play basketball. Like, that's the other way I look at it. Like, he likes the lifestyle of being an NBA player, but he doesn't really love the game. He's just good at it. So that's how I look at it with him. And where I'm going with all this when it pertains to the Knicks, I wouldn't trade for this guy if he gave me half his salary. I would not trade for him. Again, tremendous talent, yes, literally and figuratively, a tremendous talent. He is, can jump out of the gym. He has a bunch of different skills, runs the floor very well. But the injuries, the weight, all of these things factor together for me, and it just shows a guy that, to me, doesn't commit to basketball. He doesn't really want to play basketball. He's just good at it. And, It's his livelihood, and I don't care that he's coming to New York. If he comes to New York, he'll change. Okay, yeah, you're gonna take him from one place that has great food and bring him to another place that has great food, and you're gonna tell me he's not gonna eat here either. Like, he has a problem. He has a weight clause in his contract. He has to stay under 295 pounds in the weight clause in his contract. I mean, that shows you they do not trust him to stay in shape. So all these things together, again, like I said, great player, fantastic player. I want no part of him. Ty, I'll let you run with
Do the Knicks have Dick Gregory on
it.
their staff right now, or is he still dead? I think he's still dead. Zion, Mount Zion, Lauren Hill Zion, whichever way you want to do it. It's such a staggering shame in a sense when you look at being such a young guy, and I'm in better shape probably than he is, which is not trust. That's no compliment whatsoever when I say that at 50 and the fact that I went to Burger King before getting on. So needless to say, I probably would last longer in a season than he would. And as Eric knows, I always joke that the halal cart man is going to be outside of Madison Square Garden because he was when we all met up. He was out there.
Yeah.
So, is it not also the city of forbidden fruit? It's a rotten apple at times. Yep. There are a lot of things he can get into, recreational and extracurricular activities. I know that some of the 42nd Street has been cleaned up since for all those that are of a good age to understand what that means. Mm-hmm. New York went through its own cleansing of the desires that Zion seeks right now. And needless to say, this would be opening Pandora's box.
That's not a stripper's name, by the way.
That's not, you're coming to the stage. That's not enough. the glitter ball, glitter dust.
There's no Pandora coming to the stage.
Glitter dust, whatever, pixie dust, whatever you want to say. None of that. None of that. We can't have all that coming into the garden. Yeah, we all knew he wanted New York. When we hear the back and forth with him and RJ, RJ, he asked RJ that, this is around the time before the draft took place. And he says RJ's team is the Knicks, because he knew RJ's, family history right. and the grandfather being a Knicks fan, et cetera, et cetera. Ewan being Jamaican, the whole whatever going on. So he deferred to that in an interview while they were in Duke saying, oh, well, that's RJ's team, not my team. That's RJ's team. But we knew the minute that ping pong ball jumped up and the look on his face was like, get me the hell out of here. I'm not trying to go to New Orleans. Which, I understand you're a young dude. You want to, the big markets, you want to go either to LA or New York, obviously. And at the time, that's where it was. He ended up in New Orleans, of all places. LA he could have ended up. New York he could have ended up. And lo and behold, he ends up in New Orleans at the time. So he was disappointed. We all know that. But that should never stop you from being a professional. And he lost a lot of his professionalism going there and just saying, screw it. I don't want to be here. I hope they trade me. I'm not going to work on anything that I know I need to work on. And he just let go. And he probably got some terrible advice, similar to how Jaws getting terrible advice from his Toys R Us, that's his claim to fame is what he reopened Toys R Us and he just happened to pull out a toy gun out of their section and he walked around with it in a video. Zion's pulling out fake donuts, beignets and all this other stuff. And, let's put it where it is.
Not pulling out too much.
What's that?
He's not pulling out too often.
No, yeah. Well, his pull-out game is not good. His reverse button don't work. Nor does the balloon animals.
Seriously, man.
No Trojan horses. There is nothing working for this young man. Clearly. So making it clap. That's.
Any of you guys look up that OnlyFans girl that he's got a thing with?
Oh, I didn't see
that. That is a lot of woman. Like a lot of woman.
Yeah, the one Mariah Mills, the one who tweeted all the stuff about him, yeah, she's full. I'll say that she's definitely full figured.
Yeah. She's running linebackers. Yeah, I mean, I just look at Zion and he's just a hot mess. And granted, yeah, if somebody asked me if you were blind, they said blindly, would you trade Julius for Zion Williams? I'm like, well, when are we putting Julius on the bus? Clearly, that's how much I don't like Julius. But at the same time, I'm looking at the attributes and the positives of Julius Randle. He shows up. He shows up in shape. He dedicates his whole time to either his family or to the game in itself. He doesn't have any scandal, and that means a lot playing in this market.
Yep.
And we're watching two kids in Zion and John Morant really get bad advice in a lot of ways and not having the right core people around him. I thought it was funny, even, and I'm going a little bit off of Zion, but even going to John Morant, that he was so bad that Lil Wayne wanted to give him some advice. So, when Lil Wayne reaches out, when Weezy reaches out and says, hey, I know I drink scissor, but you've taken it too far. I need to talk to you. And he got rejected, by the way, which I think is hilariously funny. That someone of Lil Wayne's ilk got rejected for saying, hey, let me come in and have a conversation with you. I just think it would be just too hot of a mess. He's coming in very hot at this point with all the extracurricular things he's got going on, plus the weight, plus the injuries. I've said several hundred times that people in New York should appreciate R.J. Barrett a lot more, because look at the two guys that went before him. Granted, better talents, way more talented, but no off the court garbage going on in New York from Rowan. And he's being productive. Yeah, not efficient, but he's putting up. He's dedicated himself to playing basketball. In New York, that's all we want you to give is a full effort and leave it out on the court. But you can't trade for that guy right now. Maybe 5 more years from now, where he's grown up a little bit. That's even if he's in the league in 5 more years. I just don't think with that contract you bring him here. You can't.
It's crazy that they gave him that deal when he's barely played. Like, I still can't wrap my head around them. Yeah, I know they couldn't really help it.
They could always trade him. Somebody was going to trade for him. They knew that he's still a talent that somebody's going to trade for him. They still could have got out of that contract, and they knew that when they signed it to him.
Yeah, but now can they?
I'll speak to what you guys were just talking about. Now that deal doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
However, there will come a time, as that situation continues, that price will drop to somewhere where it makes sense to start thinking about. Because again, you are talking about somebody that can get you to the hard way anytime you need him to, probably.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of player he is. And then you roll the dice. You're saying, okay, can we put the pieces around him and the support systems around him to get the best out of him? Possibly will New York bring out the best in him, which I think is more likely than not, because I know everybody thinks that, New York, it's going to, they live such a lifestyle that it's New York and LA everywhere they go. With the women, the drugs are around, rock star lifestyle. They're traveling all the time, access to all the coolest places. They get New York kind of without being in New York.
Mm-hmm.
They get New York of every single city that they go into.
That's a good way of seeing it.
At some point, that value for him, what it'll cost, will make a lot of sense. I just don't think that's coming right now. I think what they would ask for would be way too much. And I think you have somewhat of a risk-averse front office, which you want. You want a somewhat risk-averse front office. But next offseason, trade deadline that follows, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely they're going to have to do something. They have a talented roster. They don't need him, so to speak.
They get a good roster.
Yeah, I mean they do have a good roster. Brandon Ingram is fantastic. Getting McCollum there was a steal when you look at it now because he's done so much for that franchise. So yeah, I mean they have players there that they can build around, and that team would still be okay. I just obviously he's the star, like that's what they want him for: the box office, the dunks, the stardom that he brings. But yeah, it's like Ty says, it's sad in one respect because he really does have all the talent in the world, and he could be a fantastic top 2-3 player in the league if he dedicated himself to basketball. But right now he's just way too toxic. Like I couldn't.
Yeah.
I again, I've never been his biggest fan. I said in the beginning, I think there's issues with him, but I mean, I'm not the idiot. If he was playing to the best of his ability, first of all, he wouldn't be available.
No.
But second of all, yeah, it's a no-brainer. You bring him in and you get him on your team.
But is there something, and you kind of alluded to this before, is there something to him not giving his best? Him giving his best means spending his entire life as his professional life as a Pelican, because they will never get rid of him because he's too valuable. Giving his best, he'll have the financial incentive to always stay there. All of those things. Is there something to that? If he wound up in New York, would it be different? It's something to think about.
Well, it's funny because that's one of the things I was going to bring up. I'm like, people we talk about Kyrie Irving a little bit, too much sometimes. But in the same sense, I've often said about him, I think he's pulled that crap everywhere. And then if he was in the Garden, he wouldn't be bigger than Madison Square Garden. No. And the fan base. Like
that's true.
There's just certain things about when you come here, the BS stops. Julius Randle found that out by saying, I'm going to take the Texas two-step and give you the thumbs down. And New York fans was like, you're talking to us? Mm-hmm. You're trying to do that with us? And they basically made him run home and cry in the car and change his whole lifestyle over by the time he came back the next season, because they're like, what's going to happen. Now we expect, and it has happened now, because I told Eric this and the guys, I said, literally to erase the mind of New Yorkers from doing the thumbs down. He has to get to the Eastern Conference Finals for Knicks fans to say you're cleansed and clean and move on. So what happened? He got injured and it didn't work. And once again, they're back on his case, like mofo. Just put it that way. Yeah. Same thing I said with Kyrie coming here. You think you're going to skip 20 games and go hang out in Canada and go to parties?
Just take off time because you want to. That's what he did.
People, when Derrick Rose left and went off the reservation, man, talk about the APB that was put out on him. Like, what? And people were like, do we sign this guy again? To the point that Derrick Rose came back very humble. Not that he's not a humble guy, but he was acknowledging that I need to earn back favor with you fans for the crap I try to pull. KP's doing the same thing. Going on his tour saying, I would love to come back here, but I know I need to mend fences because the fan base is not putting up with it. The same thing we move forward. I don't think Kyrie would have pulled half the crap. And I'm going to Zion. Can you really get caught eating hot dogs on the corner in New York?
There'll be people coming up to him in the club and giving him shit. He won't be able to go anywhere if he pulled that in New York and in New York.
This is the city, as grand as it is, you can't hide. The huge landscape.
That's a good point.
You cannot hide in New York. When before cell phone cameras and all that stuff, it was New York City. You can't hide here. There's eyes everywhere. People looking out. People who know where you live, know where your habits are. So, Charles Smith still lives in New York, which I think is just crazy. Yeah, but he still lives here, and people know he lives here. Same way I'm reporting it. How's this dude coming out of the house without every time someone reminding him of a blown layup?
Why did you dunk it?
Why did you dunk it? And Xavier McDaniel said the same thing. He said Knick fans, when he had a bad stretch, they were like, you suck. And then he had a good game, and he was like, he had to think back. He goes, yeah, I have sucked for 8 games. They were right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, Zion coming here, the Fat Boy Slim game is over. You can't come here and pull this crap. You can't be in in the Tata Club getting tater tots and wings. You can't go to the stripper buffet because somebody's going to be in there knowing you at the stripper buffet. So I'm going back like this dude. If he came here, his behavior has to stop. There's a Chris Rock reference too about the time. So I can't go there. But you cannot go and do these things in New York. Look at RJ. Does anybody know where RJ Barrett even hangs out at? No, because RJ's like, I'm not going out where they can find. Remember when J.R. Smith was drinking all the Hennessy? He was doing cognac commercials. He had the tattoo. He's in the club with Rihanna, and everybody knew he was in there. Everybody knew she rejected him. I'm just saying, you can't come here. This is a different beast. This city or state or whatever, and Pennsylvania or Philly are the two places where you cannot play around out in the nightlife and expect it not to be the judge and jury of that fan base when it comes time to you performing or not performing. So if he comes here, I really think he slims down and he realizes that would cut it in New Orleans. He will get run out of town in New York, and he has no place to hide. So I think you have a great chance that you may reel and get the best out of him, which is unfortunate to a city like New Orleans who banked on him, and he's giving a half-ass effort, and he would have to come here and be held accountable. And maybe that's what it is. David Griffin knew when he drafted him he didn't want to be there. So, and he's also been asking for, from what the rumors say, he wanted Teresa Weatherspoon to be the coach. So there's things that have been going on in New Orleans that have not fit the demands of what a superstar wants. And he has his belief on what he wants. And David has an ego. We know that. He has an ego. And he's probably said, I've dealt with LeBron. You're not telling me what to do with this franchise. I control it. When everybody knew, it was like, when is he coming everywhere? When is he going to ask for a trade? Because everybody in New Orleans always, Anthony Davis asked for a trade. I was going
to say, that's the crazy thing that you think about that trade that got the Anthony Davis trade that got them Ingram and, who has become an all-star. If Zion would have worked out, if Zion would have been the player that he was drafted to be, they might have been in the NBA Finals. I'm not even lying. Like they might have been.
I agree.
There.
They got talent.
There is one more reason why Zion in New York could work. Life is all about incentives. It really is. You want to get a result for something, you look at what the incentives are and you pull those strings. Mm-hmm. What better incentive is there to be the golden god in New York? And that is reserved for the best player on the Knicks. Ask Julius what that feels like. Ask Jalen Brunson what that feels like. Mm-hmm. That is a drug. I mean, that is something that will motivate you, that love, that adoration on that stage. I could see it working for both reasons, but it's tough to place a bet on that, but there is reason to think it could possibly work.
I definitely could see that. It's gonna, but like I think you said before, it's gonna take a little while, especially because of the off the court stuff he has now with the strippers and baby mamas and all that stuff going on.
I'm in love with a stripper.
It would definitely be. It's gonna have to take a while for that to die down because your guys are right, everything you're saying. But he brings that drama here.
Yeah,
that's even more magnified.
He's too hot right now. I think he's too hot right now.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be. I mean, who knows? I honestly don't think everyone's talking like, oh, the trade's imminent. I don't think it's going to happen this offseason, if I'm being honest. No. All right, let's quickly go through some of the other guys we've heard about. One of them is to be leaving the Knicks, and that was Emmanuel Quickley. Mm-hmm. Now, apparently, the Phoenix Suns have interest in him if they finally do get rid of Chris Paul or whatever, which pretty much I think is going to happen. I've definitely had a love-hate with Emmanuel Quickley. Ty, you've had a love-hate with Emmanuel Quickley. Joe, what's your just overall feeling on Emmanuel Quickley? Let's just ask that first.
He's a good player. He's not going to be worth the contract that he's getting. I don't see his ceiling being much higher than it is. And I think someone's going to really pay him. I think he's a better trade asset for this offseason. I don't know if I would sign him to that second contract.
Yeah, I think if the Knicks are going to move him, that's what they're thinking too. Like this is the summer to do it. We're not going to extend him anyway this year. I don't think they're looking to extend his contract.
Mhm.
So I kind of agree with you. And it's weird. I've been reading so much about him on Twitter. I like to gauge the rest of Knick fandom, which, by the way, it's as crazy as you think. But I like to gauge it. And there are certain people who are like, oh, if he goes to Phoenix, he's gonna be an all-star, and he's gonna. And I'm like, is this the same guy that I have been watching? Don't get me wrong. I love his work ethic. I love how hard he plays. There's a lot of things about the kid that I like as a person and as a guy, and I think whatever you get from him eventually will be his very best he could give you. But Joe, I agree with you. I don't think there's too much more room to grow here. And I mean, we saw another guy who had a fantastic regular season, and the playoffs come and he was garbage. Yeah, like he didn't show up at all. So, I don't know what other people are seeing, but I know. Yeah, Ty, we've discussed this guy so many times. Like,
I don't get it. I mean, I get it, and then I don't get it. I get it that New York fans, we fall in love with our draft picks. We do. We fall in love. We all want homegrown, organic. I mean, I've been a person that championed that theory for the longest time, going back to David Lee and Little Rob. That, I want us to grow a team organically. I think that's typically what you see in the NBA. Teams that win usually have homegrown talent that they've nurtured and cultured, and they might bring in free agents or whatever. But it does come down to having your core talent, at least someone you drafted on that championship team, as we've seen with Jokic and now Jamal Murray.
Right.
My thing is with Quickly, I just don't get it. Even when he's playing great, I'm nervous. I don't see that one thing he hangs his hat on that is great. I've seen him be able to teams take him out of games because of not having that one great attribute. If he needs to play at a certain pace or it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. There's several things to me that he trips up. You can trip him up easier because he doesn't have great vision. Is he a capable passer? Yes. Is he capable of running the point? Yes. In spots. But we're talking over 35 minutes or almost 38 minutes a game. Are you going to give that guy control of your franchise and say, go get it? I wouldn't dare do it. I think he's a six man, which is no. Detlef Schrempf was a six man. We've had a lot of great six men in this league. That are some probably in the Hall of Fame that have been six men. Yeah. So it's not a shame. I always hear these guys say, "Oh, I want to start." You should want to finish. That's really what you should want to do. Finish as much as starting. If you're in the clutch in the fourth quarter because somebody believes that you are capable of winning them games. Him as a starter, that's what I don't get. Like he has those games where he's a starter, like in Boston, which was his coming out party, so to say.
Nationally,
absolutely stunning basketball. Then I asked myself, well, Dan, why are you not playing it when you come off the bench? Why not give the same game? It's like, oh, I'm a starter. Let me prove something to you that I can run the point full time. But your role is now to be a secondary, a backup. And it's fine. There's no shame in that. There's a lot of backups. Vinny Johnson's a backup. There's a lot of guys who back up players.
Apparently his idol, Lou Williams.
Classic backup. Classic six man.
It's essential.
I'm like, why are you not showing these attributes when you come in the game? That my job is to run the team, play strong defense, and be heady. And those are not things I see about him. I mean, Eric knows I've calmed down with complaining about him to be nice, but he can get on the first boat, leaving harbor.
His defense has improved a lot.
Yeah.
I don't trust his judgment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest problem I have with him.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
All right. Well, let's move on to this guy. I put next because I really don't want to spend too much time on him. I spent way too much time on him last year, so I don't want to talk about him again. Exactly, Joe. That's where
Yeah.
Yes, we get it. You want to come here. We get it.
Yeah.
But just wait your turn now. If you really want to come here, have a shot in 2 years. You have a shot in 2 years. You come here then. I don't want to hear it. Cry to somebody else.
After that performance, he can stay in Cleveland, to be very honest.
Seriously, we beat you. Enough. I think he's a fantastic player. Again, everything I've said about him, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good
too.
I think he hurt that team.
Yeah, he did.
Nothing for nothing. They didn't need somebody on that team coming in and taking 26 shots a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of took some of Garland's thunder, right? Like Garland was developing, and
Garland was developing Mobley.
He killed Mobley.
Major talent.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. All right, so that's for the trade stuff. Enough of the trade. There are some free agents that are available though that I want to kind of run through here. So let's go through first. The guy who I like the best, so I'm gonna bring him up first. For me, would be Seth Curry. I feel like this team needs shooting, and I mean the last name says it all. These guys are that's what they do. Obviously, he's not his brother, but he's a fantastic shooter. He smart player, runs the point as a backup pretty well. If they are moving on from quickly, this would be a good guy, I think, to come in and back up and come off the bench and shoot around. I'll throw names out and then I'll let you guys comment. Let's do that. So I took Seth Curry. Ty, Torrey Craig, what are your feeling on Torrey Craig?
Torrey Craig is a pretty solid guy. He's a classic 3-and-D from what I understand about him. Shoots a high percentage from threes, plays defense. Probably be a Tom Thibodeau type of player. I'd welcome him. I think he would be a good fit. We need shooting and defense, and he can fill both pockets, so that's good.
And he's not Reggie Bullock. That's
yeah, he left the dreads at home. We don't need him.
All right, I'll go. Joe, you're like kind of the big man person. So Brook Lopez, would you like to see Brook Lopez?
One of the most underrated centers I could ever think about. Very well-rounded game. You could pop him out on the three-point line, which undoubtedly Tibbs would do to stretch the defense. That's one of the reasons why KP was such a mess in Dallas, because they used him that way and wasted him that way, why I don't want Karl-Anthony Towns to come here, because they will take him at $50 million and stick him out on the three-point line and space the floor. You could do that with him. He's Brook Lopez. He's 35. He's past his regular years, but he would have to, if you're playing a team with a strong defensive center, you can draw him out because they have to respect him on the three-point line. And that could give players space to move. So, I mean, he's going to get – how long of a contract is he going to get? 2 years?
Probably.
Yeah, I would look at Brook Lopez. I would have talks with Brook Lopez. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm assuming some of these targets obviously would be if other things are going on, right?
Yeah.
So if they were considering maybe trading Mitch Robinson, or then Brook Lopez to come and play with Hartenstein might be a good little 1-2 package to play center. I don't know. Again, I'm just some of these guys would obviously, if Brook Lopez I don't think he would come here if the situation was as it is right now.
Start him over Mitch.
So,
but I noticed all of the players on this list are all shooters.
Yes. Yes. So I'm going to go Max Strus. Obviously, we just saw him kill us because he did. He had some big shots, and he was even good. He was one of I thought, besides I think one game, I thought he was one of their better players in the finals. So I think he'd come cheap. I don't think he'd be an expensive get for them. He's definitely just a special. I mean, I guess he did show a little bit more during, he could take the ball to the basket and do a few things here and there. But I think if you're looking for a lower cost option, I think Strus would be that guy. So that's another guy that's on this list. Ty, you seemed pretty bullish about Dante, so I'm going to let you speak about Dante DiVincenzo.
I think Dante fits the mold of what we have here in New York. He's a Villanova cat. I would probably trade most of our team for Villanova players at this point. It just makes sense. These dudes are complete dogs and professionals, and I don't see one Villanova player right now, and probably even including Kyle Lowry. I know Craig don't want to hear that. Come in and probably be a dog in New York. I mean, they have that thing about them while playing here. You know, no one was talking about Josh Hart the same way they're talking about him now. You know, before he came here, everybody liked him, but nobody talked about him. He comes to New York, the lights come on. Same thing with Jalen Brunson. It was whether or not he can perform here. How good would he play here? You know, will he repeat what's in Dallas? Well, clearly he eclipsed that. He came out and was a complete dog also. DiVincenzo was outstanding player in college during the finals that he won.
Yeah.
I think he won the outstanding player.
Yep.
You think he won't be a little, rejuvenated playing? I know people question whether or not he's a product of being in Golden State with his shooting. His shooting has been up and down, but I'm going to believe the Garden Lights, his teammates. I mean, I don't even think it's a question. It's not like the kid doesn't play, hard and he doesn't give full effort. I think he hit some big shots here in New York that will win over the fan base. And he can probably be just as versatile as Josh Hart is, as far as he probably can run a little bit of the point and be a playmaker. I've always liked him since college. So.
Yeah, I think he might. I like that he played in Golden State as well. Like
Yes.
you want players who played in that kind of a system too. So, yeah, I agree. I think he would be he's a good athlete too. He's a very, very good athlete. So he's one of those players that, you're right. He would, the Garden, I think, would eat him up. I think they'd love him. He'd very much be like Josh Hart. I think you'd have to make a decision which one of those guys you want. But he's a plus for me as well. He definitely would be a plus. The last guy that we have here is Naz Reid. Joe, I'll let you talk about him. I know he's played really well against the Knicks when we've seen him. So
the Garden would love this guy. He's aggressive. He attacks. He can shoot from distance, although it's not great. He's got an ugly jump shot. Just throwing that out there. But the problem with him is he's a 6'9" center.
Mm-hmm.
And would he be good in the Garden? Would the fans love him? Would he bring a skill set that would help the team? Yeah, but he's not a Tibbs center. He's not what Tibbs wants in the center. So again, do you play him out of the 4? Does he wind up playing behind Randall? I just don't. There are a lot of players I like, but I don't like for this team because of the coach we have.
Yep.
You have to take system into account, and I don't think that he's a fit.
Yeah.
At the center position there. The Garden would go nuts for this guy.
Yeah.
So high energy. Yeah. I could just see the highlight plays coming and stuff, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's a local kid too. He's from Asbury Park, New Jersey. So it's another angle that's thrown into the mix when we talk about him. I know there's been a lot of talk about him specifically. I listen to a lot of sports talk radio, and he's a name that gets brought up quite frequently when they start talking about free agents. I kind of agree with you, Joe. I don't know where he would fit in here, especially if they're keeping Obi still, and where he's going to get minutes. I have no idea. But
he's not coming here to play 14 minutes a game.
Yeah, no. But he's fantastic. He's a fantastic player. And you're right. For all the things you said, the hustle, how he plays, then again, being local, he would be a huge fan favorite at Madison Square Garden. All right, so one last thing, and then we'll wrap it up. Ty, you wrote a nice little post today on, and you kind of touched on it before a little bit about, what's the kind of the better way to build a team? Is it draft and nurture and develop, or go the free agency route? So I'm gonna let you talk about that a little bit and what you're getting at, and then we'll kind of discuss it for a little while.
Yeah. Basically, I saw a picture that popped up regarding the ages of the Denver Nuggets. We saw Jokic, I think, was the oldest one at 28. And it just got me into thinking about, the organic building that we have, the option of how you build. I mean, so much has been made of, these free agent big names coming and forming these super teams and, yada, yada, yada. And this is how you win a championship is by ascertaining all of these high-end mercenaries. But when we go back to even looking at a team like the Miami Heat, when they added LeBron, once again, we go back to the same thing. They had a resident draft pick that was a star on the team in Dwayne Wade. You look at even when Durant joined Golden State, they had a resident star already in place that they had cultivated in Steph Curry. So we fast forward in looking even at a team like Denver. They drafted Jokic. Clearly, they got a pick from the Knicks that worked out. It didn't work in our favor, which is Jamal Murray, which brought me back to the thinking about picks, about being able to keep your stuff in-house and being able to cultivate and grow it. And it got me thinking a little bit along two lines. We often see our youth like RJ, Manuel Quickly, Grimes, and, Nick fan base. And I think also we got to throw the front office in regards to the fact that, we get a little too ahead of ourselves. And then we want what I call instant milk, to pour some water. You got milk, but we don't want to be involved in the pasteurization process. We want instant things. And that's not always the best case. We look at a team like Denver who had Jamal Murray. He was injured. They've been there. They've been at the cusp of going there, and then they've lost. They went through some growing pains, and yet alone we see them now, they're NBA champions. When we look at a guy like RJ Barrett, he's 22, and many people push back on the 22.
No, hold on. He's 23. Today's his birthday. Happy birthday.
Barrett. You can know, bro. So 23 now. All right. So we got a guy now 23, and when you look at a guy like Michael Porter Jr. is 24. He struggled throughout the playoffs, albeit he contributed, and he's wearing some hardware now, being around the right culture and having the right incumbent stars and supplement players, or whatever you want to say, Batman and Robin. I've always been on the organic build. I always liked that whole avenue of doing it that way, cultivating your drafted players and then adding on additions as far as it could be someone you trade for, or, you get someone in free agency. Similar to the Hart move, you traded to get an asset that fits the mold of what you're doing, trying to move forward with. And in looking at that, what happened was I said, well, I feel like we should be way more patient with our younger players. RJ is struggling because he should be struggling. He's not of that mature age. Your max, when you usually start to peak, is at 28, 27, 28. That's when you start peaking in the NBA. And we see that with Jokic, 28 championship. Before that, 2 MVPs of the league. He's at the time right now where you're celebrating the fruits of his labor as being your draft pick. The Knicks have some young guys that are struggling in our eyes, but they should be struggling because if you look at the lay of the land and look at Denver, their guys that are not struggling are Jamal Murray and Jokic. Those are the dogs on that team. And when you look at Jamal Murray, both he and Brunson are the same age. So when you look at the difference between those two guys, anyone would want both of those guys on their teams because they're clutch. They show up in big moments. They make big shots. They can score and carry your team when need be. All those things that I listed just there are the same things we see Brunson doing for New York. We move on to what's the difference. And, of course, Jokic being the MVP. Like I said, I'm not trying to compare Julius Randle to him. But Julius is our quote-unquote best player. He's got the accolades to show he's our best player. And all the et cetera. He's getting the fanfare. And this was his team before when Brunson came in. And Brunson kind of took the supplement role and said, this is your team. I'm not overstepping. So we look at that. Randall, 2-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA player since he's been here as a Knick 2 and 4 years. So we look at that, and you got to congratulate him on those things he did for us. He's earned them. He's a hard worker, et cetera. I'm not here to piss on him. But however, it's one of the things I brought up was that Jokic, a guy who didn't know English very well, suddenly became a vocal leader on his team. He became the leader and a vocal leader. And he was able to galvanize the troops and, because he's at 28 and he's getting to the peak of his career. we move on to Julius. His peak has been 2 NBA All-Star appearances and 2 All-NBA teams. What hasn't changed, though, is the mentality. He has not matured with the leadership, similar to Jokic excelling at that. Julius has not done great at all with any of that. So my question and my ask of New York Knicks fans and also the front office of the New York Knicks is that when you see certain things in this guy as the leader, how are you going to build moving forward? Do you suddenly say, when you talk about sacrificing and complaining about a guy like RJ Barrett, when you are saying you complain about RJ, then that means that you are very comfortable with Julius. That this guy, along with Brunson, is enough that if you traded those assets, that them combined with another great player or a very good player or high-end player is enough to get you to a championship level. And for me personally, and I don't know if the fans feel the same way, I don't think we have the ability to sacrifice those guys like RJ because they're not coming along fast enough, and say that we believe that much in Julius that he's capable of being that leader first and foremost, can be the best player on this team, because whoever you're getting as a third player is probably not going to be as good as Julius. He's just going to be a complementary piece. Do you sacrifice the youth and believe in Julius? Because that's what you're doing when you're saying trade Obi, trade RJ, trade whoever, because they are sucking at this point. I don't know if that's a good word to use, but they're not playing up to the level that you believe they should be at this point. RJ's 23 years old. He had a great performance in the playoffs, something that people didn't expect. His regular season has been, from time to time, inconsistent. But when you're complaining about him, you're also asking the Knicks front office to move on from that guy and hand the keys over to that guy who's 28, who we believe at this point might be at his peak, both physically and mentally. And that's a scary avenue for me. I just was of the opinion I wanted to know whether or not everyone else was on board with sacrificing some of these young pawns to get this guy help. Because that's what you're doing when you say, get rid of RJ. You're saying, get Julius more help. And he's the guy. And I have questions about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of, I think we all have, well, I know we do. We've talked about him so much on this show. It's kind of the topic du jour. Every time we get an opportunity, we talk about him. And for all the reasons you said, like, I think I remember saying a couple weeks ago, this guy's 2 All-NBA and 2 All-Star appearances, and I feel like he'd be almost impossible for us to get rid of.
There's
right?
reasons for that, though.
Well, no, but think about that. Like,
no, I mean, outside of basketball, there are reasons for that.
Why?
Okay. All right.
Go ahead, man.
The reason I've talked about RJ trading RJ, and I have, is because that could lead to something better. There is enough that you could sell on RJ. He's 22. Yes, he's had 2 seasons of 20 points. Well, almost 20 points this year, but he's something that in a combination of other assets could bring something better. Mm-hmm. So you have an all-star twice and an all-2 NBA player twice. Now, all the NBA front offices know, all the players know that he is also a disappearing act, that he is moody, that he is all of these things. And a front office will usually balance that out. Talent to, okay, he's a bit of a head case, all of those things. Mm-hmm. We're going to go back to your favorite person, Ty, and I'm picking up a stick to talk about this. You know I'm serious. Drought Heathen, who has an audience and who has a platform, has sat and exposed every single issue with him, every flaw with him, every time it happens, to the entire country. So front offices now have to balance that out, opposed to we have to sell this to our fan base, where probably the one voice that they trust the most has been bashing this guy and exposing every single problem with him. This is where him being a Knicks fan is counterproductive to the team he's a fan of. Yeah. Destroying the trade value of somebody that we're better off moving on for, but we're not going to get a good return for him, which is why we're kind of wed to him. The team is constructed cannot step backward to move forward. That's not the team that we have right now.
Yeah, that's true.
So you could trade RJ with some picks to bring something better back, but you can't do that with Julius.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that marriage where
Mm-hmm.
you really can't stand your wife, but you made a lot of money together, and there's no. You know what I'm saying? There's just like I think like I can't stand you, but divorcing you would be even worse. So
cheaper to keep her.
Even he needs to shut up.
Yeah, I agree.
Stop being a fan. Stop shutting up because he's doing damage.
That's the other guy we talk about a lot on the show.
That's a good take. Great take.
No, you're right. Like that's kind of what I was saying. Like Randall's impossible to trade, even though he has these accolades he's had. You know, he's impossible to trade, and it's for the reasons you stated, and for the fact that twice now in the playoffs he hasn't shown up. It's just a weird dynamic because most of the times guys like that are guys other teams want. Like, we'll take him with the warts. We'll take him warts and all because he can produce. But it's just a really strange thing when I hear people talking about Julius Randle. And it's weird. It's not even like, even my friends who aren't fans of the Knicks, who don't see him that much, I'll bring him up and they're like, like I'll bring up Randall, like, that's kind of the response you get.
Yeah.
So it's been a really, really strange. He's just a really, really strange player. Really, really difficult to talk about. But again, he's technically, I guess, our best player, right? I mean, Brunson probably, but
Brunson's probably a best player. But my hope is that because we're wedded to him, that he becomes a better third option than a 2 option, than a 1 option, and maybe he's not somebody that could stand the heat in the kitchen. Maybe being a third option will bring out the best in him. But I think that's all you can hope for.
Yeah,
at this point.
Yeah, no, that's really it.
Well, a coaching change would be such a way better. And this is not dogging Tibbs as much as it. I mean, we've seen success. I always say you got to congratulate for the success we have just as much as we complain about when he's not as successful. We did get into the second round. We had a great showing against Miami. Should have been better. Could he have been better as a coach? Yeah, the same things we've talked bad about with him came to life in the playoffs. You know, the inability or the lack of wanting to adjust on the fly, or the ability. Maybe he doesn't have it. Maybe it's not in his bag. I mean, I got to start thinking about that. He's been in the league for so long. I don't think that he's a dumb coach. I think that he
was right higher at the time.
He might be an ignorant coach, you know, who's very stubborn about this is the way I want to win, and I think that interferes with his ability to maybe pivot at times or say, what do you think we should run here? Or what are you seeing out there as players? You know, because sometimes coaches do that when they trust their players enough. You know, what are you seeing as opposed to what I think is going on? And have someone like, I think Brunson has been that guy. I think that's why the offense is better, because Brunson is like, I'm not listening to you. I know what I'm doing. And I'm not going to listen to what you bark from the sidelines, because everybody knows it's going to be an ice. Everybody knows what's going to happen. So it's not like, you know, the brilliance of Brunson is that he's just brilliant. He's a brilliant individual scoring talent.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's really funny. Like my wish is that RJ, and Eric and I talked about this the other day, I just hope he comes out with reckless abandonment and just say, I'm better than that dude. I'm better than Julius. And I'm going to prove it this year. That's the only way you move Julius to the third option, is that by forced strangulation from RJ or him in the locker room saying, look, dude, you got to fall back. Because I would think RJ would be motivated more to prove that, being that he's like, well, I showed up in the playoffs. I showed up. Mm-hmm. You know, you just showing up in the regular. You just regular. You're not showing up in Showtime. Because that would be it. Like, if I'm a player and I'm on that team and I'm looking like, dude, you didn't even show up. You're a regular season dude.
You're a basic bitch.
Yeah, basically.
If he came out with a strong start, that would do a lot to change my opinion of him because he started so slow. And
Yeah, it's one of the things.
That-
You're right.
like,
It's one of the things with him. Yes,
That's the thing.
definitely a problem.
I don't think that it's. I don't know what it is about him, because it's definitely a personality thing with him. I think because you see these things, Eric. Because Eric knows it was maybe a season ago. He came out throwing those UFOs, and I said, what in the flocker did he actually work on all year? Because Eric took me off the bridge. I was like, what is going on? What is he doing? And Eric's like, give him time. Give somebody time. Come on, 30 seconds. But then in looking at that, and Eric was right. It's like he comes around, and next thing he's playing like an all-star in the second half. And it's like, well, what's happening in the beginning of the year? Because I think he would, if he did that for 75 games, barring an injury, if he did that, Knicks fans would be incredibly in love with him, because that's what they want to see, is that you come out the gates that way. He has to build towards that, which is very. I don't know what it is with him, because clearly he can play. He can play.
Yeah,
I think
he clearly can play. He played in the pressure situations.
He's exacerbating. He drives me nuts.
He does. He drives us all. I mean, as much as I'm complimenting him, it is maddening at times, because I'm like, dude, I believe that you're better than this whole squad if you apply.
Yeah.
Or if you come out the gate like I want it. And I don't know if I can question like he doesn't want it, because it's in those key moments. Eric knows I've said this, and we've talked about it all the time. There's nobody I want taking a shot but him in the clutch, because he does that. He can have the worst game on the planet, and all of a sudden you're like, RJ from the corner. Bang, and then you've won the game because of this guy. He's clutch. I watched the Toronto game when he went full court and dunked on what's his name?
OG, the guy everyone wants to trade.
No, it wasn't OG. It was the other dude.
Siakam?
No, the young dude.
Barnes.
Barnes. He went down, yoked on Barnes. This is after Barnes told Grimes, "You're not him." Well, RJ's like, "I am him," and then RJ went down and he was emotionalist. Dunked on him. Yeah. Crowd nuts.
It's too high, too low. His mental makeup is his best attribute.
It is.
Never gets too high. Yep. Never gets too low. He'll shoot it again if he's missed 4, but
I don't know.
That's his best attribute.
He needs to start the season off snatching bodies, and that's the thing. I think that changes the whole dynamic on how it helps his team first and foremost. If he comes out snatching bodies early, I think he's deferring way too much. I think
it's weird.
Issue and a pecking order, like he believes, Julius is the big bro. I think he has some childlikeness to him. I guess I want to say, like I think he's got a little goofy kid in him still. Like, I'm here. They're my big brothers. Because I always watch his interaction with Brunson. Like when he came in, Brunson's like, "Shut up," he's sunning him, like, "Shut up, you're being a goofy kid, like, shut up, leave me alone," because he's treating him like he's a little brother. Then I think they want him to elevate and be a man. I think that's what is missing, is that man thing about his game. Like, well, I'm better than these guys in the locker room. I don't gotta respect you. I'm gonna come out and tear your heart out.
Apparently, they asked Brunson about him specifically. And Brunson was very, like, I think he could be the best player in the team. And, I see a lot of that in him. Yeah, I think there's part of it. I think in a lot of ways, he's still very immature. He's a little goofy. Not when he plays, but just in how he approaches certain situations.
Yeah.
He hasn't been, but then I look at the flip side too. It's got to be hard for this kid who's been the number one option his entire life. Even on the national team, Canadian national team, he's, he was the number one option for them as junior. Now it's probably Murray, and they have a bunch of good players there now. But and then to come here and you get drafted, and you think, okay, the Knicks are going to suck, and I'll get a ton of opportunities, and he doesn't. Like, they have Randall, and then his rookie year they had Randall, and then that's Randall.
And they had Fizdale too.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's a tough transition for him to make, and his mentality has always been that I should be here, and it's just been a rough thing. And then this year they get Brunson, and he has to again. He was like you said, he probably deferred. Okay, I have to take another step back.
And he did it at Duke too. When you think about it, coming in, he was the highly touted guy, and not that what's his name? Zion wasn't, but it became Zion and RJ. It wasn't RJ and Zion. RJ was the best player in high school, so to say.
Yeah.
So he goes in there, he supplements the Zion literally by the focus of the media. Then he comes to the Knicks. There's a lot of things. I mean, we knew his shot was a question mark coming in. You got to be able to shoot. Like I said, I don't know if it's his. I don't want to say it's his fault as much as the people that coach him up.
Everyone's tweaked his shot.
But he has shown the ability to be able to score. It just has the efficiency's been the greatest issue. I mean, he's still getting 17 points as a rookie, I think it was. Goes up to 19. He's hitting 20 mark. So the numbers are there. He's got an ugly game. It's not cute.
It's an old man's game. We say it all the time.
Old YMCA. He's got that whole old man in the shoe game. And it's not pretty cosmetics. I just think one thing that he's done not enough of is being his man body. And once again, we go about the immaturity thing. I think it has a little bit to play on because he's got the body of a man and the game of a child in the sense of the fading away instead of plowing through, following through, putting a knee through someone's chest to say, hey, I'm coming. You don't want to be up in this paint when I drive. Like he doesn't have that ferocity enough. Like he's trying to be cute. We always say he thinks he's more athletic than what he is. And I think that's always played at that. Like he thinks he's going to go in like, I always say he thinks he's Tracy McGrady and he's more, Tracy McGrady. He's not, you're not him. You're more Kawhi Leonard-ish with a little less athleticism. So use that to your strength and drive through because we saw in the playoffs when he started driving the ball, these guys aren't going to play defense nowadays. Brunson's the only guy I see take charges.
The game against Cleveland, I think it was game 4 where he had 26 points. And like in the fourth quarter, he was just barreling guys down. Like that was the best I'd seen him play in the playoffs. Like, wow, this is, yeah. No, I mean, it's crazy though. Like we keep talking about, you talked about his age before, Ty, and he's 23 and 30 years ago, he would just be coming into the league. He'd be a rookie. Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of things with him, I think, still to come. We'll see though. He might not be here. Who knows? I mean, I think he would be one of the guys asked for in trades. Like Joe said before, I think he's probably the guy that other teams look at and say, we could get something out of him. He's still developing, and we could get the best out of him.
You need a big salary to go in what they want. You can't just give them draft picks and take back a player of.
Yeah,
it would be RJ and probably Fournier. Yeah. That's what it is, or Rose is expiring option, or if they, whatever it is. I just, for me, I look at when we're talking about, once again, we go back to the whole construct of team. I look at that and I'm like, I don't know who you trade him for.
That's the thing.
Like I look at like when we're talking about, like I said, I think the guy has to be better than Randall in the pecking order. So Tibbs has no other choice but to put Randall at third. I think the guy has to definitively be better than Julius Randle. Because if he's on par with Julius is not taking a back seat. Right now, Brunson is better than Julius. Yeah. And Julius is still, in the scheme of things, not still taking a back seat. He's his equal, which he's not his equal in my opinion, but he's viewed as an equal on this team. And Brunson is clearly the guy that you want to say, that's his team. Mitch, fall in line because you're not the dude. This is the dude. Clearly, he's the one that gets us where we need to go because they weren't getting where they are with Julius Randle. They got where they are because of Josh Hart and because of Jalen Brunson. That's why we got where we are. So we move forward. If you trade RJ, who are you getting?
That's
who could you get?
Every name that's been brought up with there's something wrong with. Zach LaVine's knees.
Yep.
Towns won't get used the right way. Age for Beal, age for Lillard.
Yep.
OG Anunoby, he just gives us more Knicks. He doesn't give us something we don't have. I mean, great player, but he's just more Nick. I was talking to Erica the other day. I think we were IMing back and forth. I like them moving up in the draft. I like them taking a bunch of these assets, trying to find somebody that jumped up in the draft, and the next logical candidate in the draft order is something that duplicates what they have. Get in there, we all know we need shooting. In an ideal world, I believe we would be jumping up into the lottery and getting a better Quentin Grimes, somebody that can really stroke it and play defense.
It's Grady Dick, the guy that we should have had the draft pick for.
Grady Dick, yeah, he's going to go to Dallas. I've seen
Miami screwed us. I mean, Dallas screwed us. That's our answer was in that. It was in the number 10 spot.
We need a big 2 guard that could stroke it.
Yeah,
like really stroke it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we had the.
There's a joke there, but I'm.
Yeah, there is.
Just because of his name, and
there's a lot of pauses. Pauses in my mind.
Yeah, we just
we've been working together too long. Because I'm like, pause. It should be a pause, but pause.
God. There's so many times I just want to say it, but I'm like, no, I don't want to. There's so many times I just want to roll with it. Oh, because you guys know if we weren't on air, I would.
Yeah,
I'd take the ball and I'd run with it.
We would have definitely took some falls on that one.
All right, let's wrap this one up, guys. Joe, thanks again, man, for coming on. You are welcome back anytime.
Dude, I'm a big fan of you guys since day one, and I'm really grateful you guys got me on. It was a lot of fun. Anytime you need a third, give me a holler.
Definitely, we will. We will.
You, brother.
All right, Todd, tell them where they can find you on social and.
I'm trying to do the everything. No, it's got to be this way.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, there we go. We're getting it right. So you can scribble. You can catch me on Twitter, which I'm tweeting a little bit more. As Eric
I saw. I was very impressed.
I'm getting at him. I'm just letting him know. You can also catch me on our Facebook All Knicked Up page. Come holler at me, read some of the content, engage. You know how we do. We welcome anyone. Share your knowledge, your opinion. We want all of that.
Yes, sir. And I'm gonna start trying to put on the main Knicks page, main All Knicked Up page. I'm gonna start try and put articles there like I used to do, and then I'll just share them into the group as well, so you guys can see exactly what it is here. I try and do it in the morning sometimes, and I'll flag them, and then I just forget to go back. So I apologize. That's my fault. But if you guys want to talk to me, there's all my info. So at finally33, spell finale 33 is my personal account. At all_Knicked_up is the show account where I tweet about the show, and I tweet with other Knick fans and Knick bloggers and all the guys who do this. I talk to them with that account. And then this is my third account, which is my pop culture show that I do with my friend Peter Vera. It's called Straight Outta Gotham. The Twitter handle is @straight_O_G, where we talk about movies and comic books and all different kinds of pop culture topics. We talk about all that stuff there. We usually record every week. We are taking some time off right now because we don't want to talk about The Flash until we see it, which I will be seeing it tomorrow. So we will be recording a new episode. Yes, we're recording a new episode of Straight Outta Gotham on Sunday probably. So I'm really looking forward to that. So guys, if you guys want to talk to me, check me out over here. And as Ty said, check out the Facebook group if you're in the group, and check out the page for all the stuff related to the show.
I do have one suggestion.
Sure.
Now that you're doing this kind of model, which I think is great, you need to track down Kristen from the old Knicks fix wall and then turn into the Nets fan. It would be a battle royal. It would be hilarious if you got her on.
Oh man. What is she would probably welcome coming on there.
Yeah, she would. Are you kidding?
You guys do not want to do that to me.
It would be
hilarious. You definitely have to return for that. It'd be a return of the Craig Jedi on that one.
We have had she and I have had some pretty big battles in the past. to see it play out. It'd probably be great. It'd probably be like Undisputed or one of those shows.
It'd be like the clown show, just like Undisputed or First Date.
Seriously, be like one of those shows. It'd be crazy.
Atrocity.
Oh God. I mean, I still see her popping up in Alan's page. So
yeah, she was on today. I saw it. It was...
Yeah, so maybe, Joe, you gave me a thought. Maybe we should do something like that. Ty, you might have to moderate.
She's
I'll have to let Ty moderate that.
Single Nick female. That's really what she is. She's obsessed with coming up on those pages.
Oh man, she is, man. I don't get it.
I've never seen no one. I mean, we dislike the Knicks. I mean, it's a love-hate thing always with the Knicks. But if I left the Knicks, I wouldn't come back. I wouldn't come back to complain about them. Yeah, it's just a weird dynamic.
Yep. She loves Julius though, so it would be quite the conversation.
The whole cape and everything.
Must see viewing.
All right, all right. I have to. I'm gonna have to have some adult beverages before that show.
She will do as well. She'll be like opening bottles of wine on. Isn't that what she does? She's like a wine vendor or something like that.
Yeah, I think beer. I thought it was beer, but whatever. One of the two.
First person I saw that hated Allen Houston. That's just a weird thing I've never seen.
Yeah, for like some, I know.
Allen Houston. Figure that one out.
Yeah. Well, if Kristen, if you're watching this, we know you're getting mad right now because we're talking about you and you can't respond. So holler at us. Let me know. I'll definitely. Craig just said, please do it.
Craig will be back. He'll be back for that episode.
Yeah, Craig can go back for that show. Craig back on that show. All right, everyone, we're gonna shut it down. So, Joe, again, thanks for coming on, man. You are welcome back anytime. And for Joe and Ty, I'm Eric. You are watching All Nicked Up. See you next time.